Hi all, I'm Julia, and today we are going to talk about structural markers in reading comp passages. Noticing the structure of a GMAT reading comp passage is an important part of understanding the passage, which is, of course, integral to getting those verbal points. Structural markers are words or phrases that help readers follow the logic of the passage, the function of different sections, and the relationship between the sections. Additionally, they can illuminate the author's intentions and main points, which are great to notice. These markers will help you to understand both simple and complex passages. So let's get to know the 12 styles that you are most likely to encounter on the GMAT. These are the 12 marker types that we will be discussing today: contrast, agreement, opinion, conclusion, support, additional point, look above, causation, rhetorical question, myth, extreme, and qualifier. If you are unfamiliar with any of these, do not worry. I am going to present common keywords for each and then show you how they would look in the context of a passage. We're going to start with contrast markers. Contrast markers are words that indicate a contrast or disagreement, such as however, but, although, conversely, despite, on the contrary, then again, instead, or nevertheless. For instance, I dislike running, although I like how I feel after I've completed a long run. The although is the marker that shows the second part of the sentence will contrast with the first. Or, we chose to vacation in Playa del Carmen this summer despite the high UV index. Despite shows the contrast. Noticing contrast markers is useful as authors often use them to state main points of the passage. Also, since they mark transitions between views and ideas, they are great clues for revealing the structure of the passage, which is important to notice. Agreement markers are terms that indicate agreement, such as similarly, likewise, in fact, or not only, but also. For instance, her debut novel performed much better than expected. In fact, it made the bestseller list. Or the cast members were excited by the director's new vision. Similarly, the producers were thrilled. Each of these indicates that the second part will be in agreement with the first part. Opinion markers are words that indicate an opinion, the author's or someone else's, is being presented. They typically include words like argue that, assert, claim, contend, believe, propose, clearly, or should. For instance, scientists claim that the desert is not full of giant worms, and there is no reason for people to be concerned. The scientists have this opinion that the author is introducing. Or, some historians contend that the citizens of Pompeii did not realize Mount Vesuvius was a volcano. The Pompeians believed it was only a large mountain. So historians have an opinion, and also the citizens of Pompeii had an opinion. Obviously, opinions are a huge part of reading comprehension, as they often play a part in the primary purpose of passages. So being able to easily find them is really helpful to gaining the deep understanding we need to succeed on these questions. Conclusion markers are words and phrases that introduce a conclusion, such as therefore, which I use a lot, thus, in summary, in conclusion, in essence, in short, all things considered, all in all, by and large, for this reason, clearly. For instance, all things considered, the movie wasn't that bad. That is the conclusion of this person's opinion on the movie. Clearly, the new math curriculum is superior to the one previously taught. Clearly indicates that this is a conclusion. Conclusions are super important to the verbal section, so being able to find them is a valuable skill to develop, and these are good words to help you get there. Support markers introduce supporting evidence or examples, such as, for instance, in particular, for example, after all, because, as indicated by, due to, given that. For example, Rolando's salsa is the best in the state, as evidenced by the many glowing reviews on his website. The glowing reviews support the conclusion that Rolando's salsa is the best in the state. Or, after all, many students will apply themselves diligently when left to their own devices. Further down from support markers, we'll have additional point markers. And these indicate that the purpose of the sentence is to support a conclusion that's stated a bit further away, probably more than one sentence above. Typically, they start with words like furthermore, additionally, likewise, moreover, as well, also, or similarly. For instance, reading aloud to children provides benefits beyond literacy. It supports language development by exposing kids to a wider vocabulary and diverse sentence structure. Furthermore, reading can foster empathy and emotional awareness by allowing children to understand different perspectives and process their own feelings. Additionally, shared reading time strengthens the parent-child bond by offering a meaningful opportunity to connect over an enjoyable activity. Furthermore and additionally, both offer additional support for the first sentence. Reading aloud to children provides benefits beyond literacy. Similar to additional point markers are look above markers, which are terms that indicate that a sentence is referring to something mentioned previously in the passage. Terms such as this X, these X, those X, such X, for example, for instance, or also. Check this example. Some books that were once widely banned are now considered classics. The Diary of Anne Frank and George Orwell's 1984 are both featured on required reading lists in schools across the United States. Harper Lee's To Kill a Mockingbird is one of the most successful English language novels in history and has sold over 40 million copies. The Adventures of Tom Sawyer by Mark Twain, though it has faced many challenges by schools and public libraries since its publication in 1876, has never been out of print. These examples show how perspectives on literature can evolve over time, with once banned books becoming recognized as works of cultural and educational value. These examples refers to The Diary of Anne Frank, 1984, To Kill a Mockingbird, and The Adventures of Tom Sawyer. So it indicates that you should look above, and in this case, the examples are a little bit scattered. Causation markers are terms that indicate a cause and effect relationship is being discussed or mentioned. Typically, they are introduced by terms like caused by, because, due to, attributed to, resulted from, as a result of, consequently, thus. For instance, the dangerous snowstorm resulted from the heavily predicted polar vortex. So the cause is the polar vortex, the effect is the dangerous snowstorm. Whether the sudden increases in price were fully explained by supply chain issues was in dispute. So this one is questioning a cause and effect relationship, whereby the cause is the supply chain issues and the effect being questioned is the sudden increases in price. Anytime a cause and effect relationship comes up on a GMAT verbal question, it's very important to understand what is or is not said to cause something else. Rhetorical questions. There is only one marker for rhetorical questions, and it is, of course, a question mark. The neat thing about questions in reading comp passages is that we, the readers, aren't expected to answer them. It's not a conversation between us and the author, after all. It's the author presenting their beliefs to us as the audience. So anytime you see a question mark, be on the lookout for the answer to that question, because it's likely to be a key point in the passage. Is the experimental new drug worth the side effects? According to the study participants, the drug improved their quality of life far more than the side effects detracted from it. So the author presents a question and then immediately presents their answer. Myth markers are terms that introduce a view that will be discussed, called into question, or disputed, such as widely held view, common belief, common perception, prevalent perception, or many people believe. For instance, there is a common belief that humans use only 10% of their brain. However, science does not support this view. During brain scans, though different regions show different levels of activity, all regions in a healthy brain show as active. Additionally, if humans did only use 10% of their brain, then damage to the other 90% should not impair performance, but there is no area of the brain that can sustain even minimal damage without an accompanying loss of abilities. This is a common template for reading comp passages. They introduce some myths and then the author tears it down. So getting familiar with this basic layout is super helpful. Extreme markers are markers that indicate an extreme statement is being made. Words like all, every, only, none, always or never, most or least, best or worst, or impossible. For instance, unlike Geneva, Rome almost never experiences snow. If the answer was, it never snows in Rome, that is too extreme. These are very good to notice because reading comp passages often ask us to match the correct level of answer to the passage. So this answer is more extreme than the passage and it cannot be correct. As compared to, it sometimes snows in Rome. Well, yes, if it almost never snows in Rome, then sometimes it is snowing. Finally, qualifier markers are words that qualify a fact stated in the passage, such as may, can, could, possibly, probably, likely, some, sometimes, typically, generally, often, perhaps, usually, normally. For instance, the theater gives away free tickets versus sometimes the theater gives away free tickets. The second version is qualified. You can't expect to get free tickets every time you go to the theater, only sometimes. Or sharks in this area do not attack tourists versus sharks in this area usually do not attack tourists. I think we can all agree that these two sentences convey a different level of risk to tourists. So be on the lookout for qualifier words. There you have it. That concludes the 12 different types of structural markers that I wanted to discuss with you today. Practice noticing these in your reading comp passages, and you'll be able to develop the deep understanding necessary to GMAT Verbal mastery. Until next time.